I'm Lisa Saunders, and I wrote Anything But a Dog because I wanted to share the story of a homeless old dog's devotion to a severely handicapped child. And this is a dog I never wanted. My oldest, my healthy daughter, Jackie, asked me for a dog when she was about 6, and I said no, because you have a handicapped little sister. You can't have one. Dogs can be very dangerous around people that can't defend themselves. She was very upset that I said she couldn't have a dog, but I did tell her that if God brings a dog to our door, you can have it, because that's how I got my dog, which was a beagle named Donald Dog, when I was a little kid. So I thought, what are the chances of a dog really showing up at our house? Well, anyway, that's why I have since written the story, Anything But a Dog. And I will read an excerpt, Chapter 1. Chapter 1, no, you can't have a dog. Mom, can I have a dog? My 6-year-old Jackie asked, standing next to me while I washed the breakfast dishes. I cringed. The day was here. All kids inevitably ask for one. And why wouldn't they? Movie dogs like Lassie drag you from burning buildings and keep you warm when you're lost in a blizzard. But by the time we're adults, we've learned the truth about them. They urinate on your new wall-to-wall carpets, dig holes in your leather recliners to hide their rawhide bones, and bite your neighbor's kid. No, you can't have a dog, I said, bracing myself for the age-old argument. Why not, she demanded. My mind raced for good excuses to make my point. Might as well start with the standard one. A dog is too much work, and I know I'll end up being the one who walks it in the pouring rain. I promise I'll take care of it. I really will. Honest, Mom, Jackie exclaimed. Sure, I thought. That's what they all say. Avoiding her pleading eyes, I picked up a plate sticky with leftover syrup. The truth is, I said, we just can't risk a dog around your sister. I hated admitting that. I didn't want her to blame her little sister, 3 years younger, for being so fragile. But taking care of Elizabeth, who was quadriplegic with cerebral palsy, was already enough work without adding a dog that might playfully nip at her. I know, I'll give Jackie the lip-severing story. That'll convince her we can't have a dog around her sister. When I was 13, I began, I talked Grandma and Grandpa into letting us have a Weimaraner. His name was Bogey, short for Humphrey Bogart, and he was a nipper. One day, my 2-year-old cousin, Susanna, was playing on the floor underneath the table with a popsicle stick in her mouth. Bogey snapped at the stick and bit her lip off. My grandmother got the lip off the carpet and wrapped it in a paper napkin to take it to the hospital, but it couldn't be sewn back on. A surgeon fixed her face, but when we got home, my mother loaded Bogey into the back seat of the car and took him to the vet's. It was the last time I ever saw him. He took the long walk, as they say in the Lady and the Tramp movie. I paused so Jackie could let the horror of the incident sink in. But all she wanted to know was, well, where's Susanna's lip now? Gosh, I don't know. The last time I saw her lip, it was stuck to the napkin, all shriveled and mummy-like on my grandmother's bookshelf. But that's besides the point. Can't you see how dangerous a dog could be for your sister? She can't speak. How would she call out to us if she was in another room and the dog was bothering her? Elizabeth was born severely disabled because I caught cytomegalovirus, CMV, while pregnant with her. She was unable to roll over, sit up, or even feed herself, and required constant hands-on attention. When she wasn't getting therapy at her special ed school, I kept her propped up on the couch so my husband Jim, Jackie, or I could easily sit beside her and stretch her rigid limbs. Naturally, a dog would try to sit beside her too. I could just picture it landing on Elizabeth when it jumped on her couch. It would stand on her scrawny legs, scratching her with its nails, and lick her face, just after cleaning its unmentionable parts. Elizabeth would be stuck. If there was a Lassie-like dog out there, Elizabeth more than anybody else could use one, but I just couldn't take that kind of a chance on an animal that could live for up to 13 years. Undeterred, Jackie asked, "Can I call Daddy at work? Maybe he'll say it's okay to get a dog." I headed to the laundry room of our Cape Cod-style house with Jackie in hot pursuit, scampering like the playful puppy she desperately wanted. Jim and I had been married 10 years, and that was enough time to know he'd be even less keen on a dog than I was. Daddy's afraid of dogs. When he was a little boy, neighborhood dogs chased him on his bike, and one bit him. It would scare him to death to think of a defenseless little Lizzie with a dog. I felt Jackie tug on my arm as I moved the wet clothes from the washing machine to the dryer. But Mom, I would never leave Elizabeth alone with the dog. It would go everywhere with me. I stared in her earnest blue eyes, nearly hidden behind her crooked, self-cut bangs. Jackie, you can't keep a dog beside you at all times. How about when you go to the bathroom? What happens when you go to school? Suddenly, the irrefutable reason why she couldn't have a dog struck me. Why hadn't I thought of this before? Besides, we live on a highway. The moment the dog got out, it would get hit by a car. I was right, that worked, but in a way that made me not feel very victorious. Jackie turned away and ran upstairs. I could hear from the squeaky thud that she'd thrown herself on her bed. She was undoubtedly crying with the understanding that all hope for a dog was gone. It was true, we really shouldn't have a dog as long as we lived on Veers Mill Road, a busy highway only 16 miles north of Washington, D.C. Jackie was such a good kid, always eager to please. I hated to disappoint her, especially when I thought of my own childhood buddy, a beagle named Donald Dog. I couldn't remember being a little girl without him. When I was 3, we lived in Massachusetts. Donald Dog came to our doorstep and never left. My parents invited him in, thinking they'd have an extra pair of eyes to watch over me. A year earlier, when I was 2, we lived above a bar. My parents were late risers, and when they got out of bed one morning, they were terrified to find my bed empty and me nowhere to be found. By the time they got around to checking downstairs in the bar, there I was, sitting on a bar stool, sipping a bottle of Coke with a stack of nickels for the jukebox. Compliments of the bartender. That's when it occurred to my parents that a dog might protect me should I run into more sinister characters the next time I went bar hopping.